Hey guys, real quick, before we jump into today's episode, my book, Get Wealthy for Sure, the number one financial strategy for business owners to multiply wealth predictably, has been a bestseller, and it continues to reach more and more people because of all the support. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for sharing this with family, friends, coworkers, and everybody that you know. To show my appreciation for all of our podcast listeners, I'm giving away a free ebook and audiobook version of the book, Get Wealthy for Sure. All you have to do to download your free ebook and your free audiobook is go to getwealthyforsure.com. That's getwealthyforsure.com. The world is going through changes. Changes happening at a speed that we have never seen before. This is leading to disruption, chaos, panic, fear, hysteria, and a turbulent economy and marketplace. How do you protect your wealth in a turbulent world? How do you invest for cash flow and alternative assets to escape the rat race in times of uncertainty? How do you decentralize yourself, your family, your community, your business, and your investments to become sovereign and escape the matrix? If you are looking for strategies, tactics, and techniques to escape the rat race and matrix, you are in the right place. My name is MC Lobsher, and this is Cashflow Ninja. This is Cashflow Ninja. I'm MC Lobsher. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode and spending your most valuable resource, your time, once again with me on the show. Everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. Cashflowninja.com. We've got over 1,000 podcast episodes, 4 books, reports, webinars, and much, much more, all at cashflowninja.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the number one newsletter in the alternative wealth strategy and alternative asset investing space, the Wealth Dojo. You could subscribe to the Wealth Dojo by going to cashflowninja.com/subscribe. I've got a fantastic show for you today. AI, well, everybody's aware of AI by now. You should be. If you're not, you better start paying attention. The disruption that it's already bringing is, it's shaking up things in the economy, the marketplace, and businesses. It's going to be very, very interesting to see where things are headed the next 12 to 18 months. I can't imagine what 5 years from now look like. I cannot even imagine what we look like 10 years from now, just as far as the economy, marketplace, and businesses. So joining me today is Susie Kirch and also Dr. Stephen Kirsh with Profit Minds. They're going to talk a little bit about AI and how you can incorporate it into your business and what you should be thinking about when it comes to AI. Susie and Steve, great to see you.
It's great to be here, MC. Thanks a lot for having us.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to our conversation. This is going to be a good one. If you're listening to this, you're gonna have a ton of value packed into a very short space of time. So you might want to go back and listen to it a couple of times. But before we jump into our topic for discussion, for my listeners and viewers that's not familiar with you guys, can you please just share a little bit about your journey and what you're getting up to these days?
Sure. Well, I'll start. I have a PhD in physics and 30 years in high tech. Along the way, got interested in productivity, became a certified facilitator of the Covey 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Taught that for, close to 30 years now. I've been a certified facilitator. And when I left my corporate gig now, almost 10 years ago, I hung out a shingle as a productivity coach. And what I discovered was that small business owners have absolutely no clue what their time is worth. And if you don't, well, you're an economics guy, right? You're a numbers guy. If you don't know what the starting value is, you don't know what the ending value is, you can't calculate an ROI. So I got a lot of pushback, and I had to find other things to do to help people improve the value of their business. And over time, I've added several tools to my toolbox. Most recently, I came across, and this is more than a year ago now, I came across a system of utilizing AI, artificial intelligence. And I knew because of Susie, my daughter's background, I knew she would be perfect to be in this. So I called her and I said, "Hey, Susie, you want a job?"
To which I said, "Woohoo!" So I have a master's in mathematics from Boston University. And while I was in grad school, I started as an intern at a small AI startup. And they really threw me in the deep end. They were just like, "Here's some research papers. Good luck." And I'm like, "Okay, sure." But as I usually do, I just dove in and tried to learn as much as I could, and wound up really making a home for myself on the patent side of the research team. And so from my time there as an intern and then as a full-time employee after I graduated, I have one granted patent and 5 additional pending patents, all in the AI space, all in the natural language processing side of things. So natural language processing is getting these artificial intelligence models to actually understand the language that they're given. And there are a lot of different pieces to that. But from that time, did a lot of learning, working on understanding how these models are put together, how they work, why they work, the basics of how these algorithms function. And so now I am the AI guru of profit mines, because that's what happens when your dad asks you, "Hey, what do you want your job title to be?" And
One of the perks.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it basically translates to, I'm the primary AI trainer and consultant for Profit Minds. So I run all of our training programs and do a lot of various AI consulting work.
Awesome. Now, I don't know, maybe you've been asleep or you have not paid attention, but there's something happening in the working world and in the economy. And I think if you stay asleep and wake up 5 years from now, it's going to be a nightmare for a lot of people. So what's happening? What are you guys seeing in the economy? What's happening in the working world?
I think there are, in a big picture sense, there are an awful lot of companies who are now saying, we're going to involve AI in everything that we do. Economic disruption is happening. There are people being laid off, and now CEOs are admitting it's because of AI, because of the use of AI. On the other hand, there are going to be lots of, just like when computers came out, they said, well, we're not going to have any secretaries anymore, right? Well, we still do. It's just smaller numbers of executive admins, and they do more stuff, right? Similarly with AI, it's not that you're going to completely eliminate jobs, but the jobs are going to change. They're going to morph. You're going to need to know how to use AI. In fact, companies are saying now it's going to be a part of everybody's job review. It's going to be a part of how they decide who's promoted, how they decide who's hired. And in fact, we'll probably talk about this a little bit later. We have an offering for people who are either trying to future-proof their career or trying to find a job. But it's impacting things. And they're saying that artificial general intelligence, which is the ability of AI to do sort of as good a job as the average human, is coming in, some people say 2 years, some people say 5. Whatever the timeline is, it's coming. So you better pay attention.
It's interesting. This is kind of like, I would say this time, the speed of which this is going to happen is 1,000 times faster, but than the internet, right? So I still remember, I mean, I did grow in South Africa, so I'll preface that, but I still remember when I was in university, we still had typewriters and people typing up our papers, right? And that's when the computers was really rolling out. And then you started to get into the .com kind of like era. And I still remember at that stage too, there was a lot of doom and gloom of folks that are saying it's the end, it's over, it's done. The internet's going to take everything over. And then the internet created, more millionaires around the world than, any other technology. Things just changed, right? And for the better, more productivity, reaching more people, the information, all that kind of stuff. And it's funny. I see a lot of doom and gloom out there about this, and I'm like, I think this is a tool that can be used just like the internet. And if you know what you're doing, I mean, the future belongs to you, right?
And I understand that, there is a lot of fear around AI and especially generative AI and the impact it's having on the workforce. And I understand that, right? People don't want to lose their job. That's fair. People want to make sure that they continue to have a livelihood. And again, we get it. But denying that this exists is not going to help with that. And it's one of those of, we understand that it takes time to adjust. We understand that it takes time to transition into trying to use this and maybe being willing to try some things. But it's all part of that learning process that, everybody is having to go through. Literally everyone who's trying to use generative AI, wherever they are in their learning to use it journey, they started at some point of fear, trepidation, uncertainty. We've all gone through it. And so know that you're not alone. If you have some hesitations or concerns, the good idea is to use that and make sure that you are being intelligent with your use of generative AI. I like to remind people that generative AI and using generative AI is not an excuse to turn off your brain. You can't just say, well, AI told me it was a good idea. That's not a good reason for anything.
Right. We used to say, I read it on the internet, therefore it must be true, right? Same thing. I got it from generative AI, therefore it must be correct. No.
Yeah. Yep. We have folks that are building their own assistants and bots and, all these different things. They're sophisticated folks listening. And then there's also people that are just starting. Maybe they just set up a ChatGPT account, or they're looking at their Gmail and saying, what's this Gemini thing that keeps popping up, So we have people all over the place. Can you share a little bit just what generative AI is?
Yeah, so generative AI is artificial intelligence that generates. So most of the time it's generating text, but it can also generate images, it can generate videos, it can generate a whole bunch of different things. But at its core, it is looking at the words that it's seen, and it comes up with the words that should follow. So these are tools like OpenAI's ChatGPT, Anthropic's Claude, Google's Gemini. There's also Grok and Mistral and Perplexity, and I lose track after about a dozen of them.
Yep.
But right, so all of these work on the same principle, where they've been trained on the internet, essentially. And so they look at in a lot of ways, it's like a prediction algorithm. So they look at all the words that they've seen and they go, based on all of this and what I know about English, this is the most likely next word. I like to describe it as that party game where you're making up a story one word at a time.
Yep.
I usually had the friends that would make it go off on some weird tangent because they wanted it to, because they thought it was funny, which is fine. But also, if you're looking for facts, not always the most useful thing. And so that's one of those things where it can go off onto these weird tangents. It can hallucinate, which is what we say when it's making up facts. And so that's essentially what generative AI is doing. It's predicting the next word. So it's predicting, here's what should happen. Here's here's the response to your question, or here's the answer to whatever thing, or here's the summary. It's generating it one word at a time.
And there are two pieces of this that are really important to keep in mind. One is generative AI doesn't actually understand anything. It is merely predicting the most likely next word, right? And the other is, as Susie said, it can make stuff up, but it will sound absolutely authoritative when it does so. So just because it says it in a very declarative, very definitive way doesn't make it any more true. And that's where it's incumbent on the user to double check. Look at the references, actually click the links, because sometimes it even makes up the references, believe it or not. And read the article that it points you to make sure that that article actually says stuff about what you're talking about, and that it fits together, right? So you got to check the facts. Hallucinations are getting better, but still not perfect.
And it's improving every day and every week, right? So it's already a very, very powerful tool. So share a little bit with my listeners and viewers. There's going to be consequences for decisions made today. Wait a minute, isn't that life in general? Okay, I digress. But there's going to be consequences of things that you don't do, and paying attention to this and figuring out a way how to incorporate this so that you could utilize this, leverage this, and actually help use this tool to grow your business instead of becoming a victim of it. Talk a little bit about that, because there's consequences for not taking action right now. And then obviously there's a massive upside for people that are ahead of the curve or are taking proactive action, right?
Yeah. I think the first thing to make sure that you do, if you have a free account on any one of these platforms, just like, in the days of, early days of Facebook, or even today, right? If you don't pay for the service, then recognize that the company is going to extract value from you. And so I would encourage everybody to get at least a paid account in whatever platform it is that you're going to use, because then you have the option of turning off the sharing of your chats. Right. And it's important that you go in and that you do that. Otherwise, you have to assume, just like every post on Facebook, it's all over the place and it is free game for anybody to use. So that's the first thing. I don't care what platform you use. We're platform agnostic. You like Gemini, you like, ChatGPT, you like Claude, you like Perplexity, whichever one you like, right? Grok, XAI's version. But get yourself a paid account and make sure that you can turn off the sharing. So
it's pretty good advice to start off with.
and then the other thing is, and Susie might want to talk about this. All of your employees, if you're a small business owner, you can assume that all your employees are also using generative AI, right? And you need to think about that. So you want to talk a little bit about AI policy, Susie?
Yeah. So in short, an AI policy is some guidelines on how your company, your employees, right? Everybody uses generative AI and, well, AI in general, but right now we're primarily talking about generative AI. And so these are things like starting with what platforms can you use or not use? What models are you allowed to use, right? There are some of them that you may trust more than others, right? We remember when DeepSeek came out some number of months ago now, and it was a big deal. And some people chose to trust it, and we're on the side of not so much. That's just us. But that's one of those things that goes in your AI policy, making sure that you're turning off your data sharing. And then you're talking about what types of information can you share, right? If you have company proprietary data, if you have confidential data, if you have, right, anything that's protected under various laws like HIPAA, and they all have acronyms that I don't remember most of them.
GDPR, all those kinds of things.
Those
right?
ones.
Yep.
Right. So where you're protecting people data and personal identifying data, right? All of that, need to make sure that none of that shows up on generative AI, making sure that you're keeping all of your data confidential. This is, anything that you're developing that would be considered a trade secret or a company secret, right? All of those kinds of things, making sure that you have the list of the do's and don'ts. And then what kinds of tasks can people do with generative AI? If you have things like, I don't want anybody doing this type of thing with generative AI, put that in there. Right?
Right.
This is the list of do's and don'ts. Now, we are not lawyers, so everything that we say, take it with that grain of salt, but also just think about, you want it not just that you've written it and it's there, but you need to share it with your entire company. You need to share it with, if this falls under something that your clients need to see as well, make sure that they see it, because it ain't worth the paper it's written on if nobody knows about it and nobody follows it.
So you got to protect yourself and your employees and your company first. And then also from an AI strategy of implementing this. Talk to me a little bit and share about how do you execute on this if you're a small business.
Well, I think there's a variety of ways of doing this. I think it's important from an employee morale standpoint that the owner, the sponsor of the activity, get out in front and say what the purpose of getting everybody using AI and or getting aligned around an AI strategy and or implementation process. I would hope that the goal is not to lay off people. Typically with a small business, we get to a bigger business, and a lot of them have done so. Employees are just a number on a spreadsheet, right? You got 17 people doing this and 300 people doing that, right? And you can say, well, if they're twice as productive, we'll just get rid of half of them, right? I don't think small businesses operate that way.
Please don't.
Yeah, it's not a good idea. It's really bad for not only for the people that get fired or the people that get laid off. It's also bad for the people that stay. We can talk more about that later. But the point is, get out in front and say, look, we're not trying to do this so that we can get rid of half of you. We're trying to do this so that everybody gets to upskill. Everybody gets to, because you have to have a human in the loop, because you have to have somebody check and somebody that knows what good looks like so you can check. All right. So get out in front of it and explain to people why it is that you're doing it. It's for the growth of the business. It will help them as employees to do a better job, to do some, get rid of or automate some of the sort of drudgery kind of work that they don't really want to do. What we find is if, it's properly implemented top down and also bottom up, by the way, because you need those people to implement AI at the worker level, because those are the people that are best suited to say, this is what a good output looks like. So you need them to double check using their expertise. But once you've shrunk their workload by 40%, say instead of 5 days a week, they can do it in 3 days, then what do they do with the other 2 days? We like to talk about the someday maybe list. Gosh, someday if I had time, I might be able to do this kind of thing, right? What are all the things on their list that they go, gee, I wish I had time to do this. And what we find is that employees are not only more efficient and effective, but they're also more engaged. So you want a really loyal workforce? Teach them how to use AI.
And also for those small businesses, right? Maybe some of you don't have the funds to hire more people or are struggling to hire more people. Well, having your employees learn to use and properly leverage generative AI, you've doubled your workforce without having to spend any more, without having to figure out how to hire more people, right? You double your output. And maybe for some of your employees, you just need twice as much of that thing that they're already doing done. And then some people can work on their someday maybe list, and maybe there's some restructuring that needs to happen, or right, there's some hats that need to get passed around because, in small businesses everybody's wearing 15 hats, right? And you want to
Yep.
make sure that the right people are doing the right things. And maybe you as a business owner spend all of your time working in the business instead of on your business. Well, if you're able to shrink some of your time down, so now you can spend less of your time, or maybe not all of your time working in the business, and have a day or two to work on the business and work on that business growth. There are so many opportunities, but you have to be willing to give it a try, and you have to find a way to encourage your employees to give it a try.
So it's looking at it as a multiplier force rather than a force that's going to just help you reduce your workforce. It's look at it as saying, if we just stay where we're at with the same people and we train these folks and we invest in them and we have them skill up on AI, this is a multiplication force that is unstoppable. And, maybe we're 5 to 10 people right now, but people are going to think, what do you got, like 100 employees back there?
That's right. And we did an experiment with a law firm, and we had this lawyer had a paralegal, offshore paralegal, fully trained lawyer, just not part of the bar in the state where the client was, right? And what he said, the result of that work was that the paralegal was able to do things, yes, say 40 to 60% faster, right? But in addition to that, the quality of the work was better. That meant he spent less time double checking. And she asked him fewer questions, which meant fewer interruptions for him, and his ability to stay focused on the tasks at hand. So similarly kind of thing for workers up and down the chain. We find that every employee in the knowledge workspace, every employee can do everything that they do faster and easier with AI.
So this, for service businesses, this is a no-brainer of getting a strategy together, implementing, executing it, and having all the policies in place and workbook for the employees. Also a product type business too, right? We're talking physical manufacturing. There's a lot of things that you can use this as a multiplier effect and force.
Oh, absolutely. Creating standard operating procedures, training documents, HR onboarding,
Tables of responsibilities,
all of those things, safety protocols. You want to minimize the amount of injuries, right? Obviously, as a manufacturer.
No, very, very, very interesting. Tell me a little bit about, you shared how to protect yourself, your information, because you have to turn the sharing off. But as a whole, as a business owner, small business owner, how do you protect IP, and what can you share around protecting information and security?
Yeah, we actually have a platform that we recommend for folks to you can actually upload your data into an IP vault and then use it. Susie understands this better than I do, but basically they vectorize the data in such a way that it goes out in little bits and pieces. Think about it as your credit card getting shredded, and then it only sends out the little pieces of the credit card that are absolutely essential. And then Humpty Dumpty, you really can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. So,
Nope.
so there are platforms out there that will absolutely protect your IP. We'd be happy to talk to the listeners about that if they're interested. But you have, through that model, you have the opportunity, or that platform, you have the opportunity to interact with a bunch of different AI models as well. So, but that's one way. The other way, of course, is you can go in and you can redact all of the documents, make sure that that's painful.
I'm cringing just you saying that, redacting all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about, so if our listeners is listening to this, they're a small business owner, what is like some of the tasks immediately, like right now, they can say, okay, this week we're going to focus on the next couple of things to start to bring in AI to help us with these types of tasks. What's some of the low-hanging fruit?
Well, I think the one that's the most obvious, that almost everybody uses it for, right, is content creation.
Yep.
But there's a problem with that, right? You need to make sure that it doesn't sound like AI. You need to make sure it sounds like you. And there are ways of teaching the AI to make sure that it sounds like you, more like you. So that's the kind of thing. But if you've got a problem that you're working on, one of our favorite hacks, Susie, I'll let you talk about it.
I love just asking generative AI how to use generative AI. It's one of those weird meta things that we don't think about. I don't sit there and talk to, well, I can't say that. I do sit and talk to myself, but I don't go, hey, Susie, how can you help yourself do this thing today? Not generally something that I do, but I will type into whatever generative AI platform I'm using and ask, how can you help me do this thing? I'm trying to do this. I have this goal, and here's my obstacle. How can you help me achieve this goal and work through this obstacle? And it will usually give you a decent length laundry list of all of the different things that it can do to help. And some of them you may say, like, okay, well, that one's good. That one may not work as well for me, right? Because each person has their own situation. And usually we as individuals aren't actually very good at describing the problem. For example, my office is a mess. But that doesn't say, is it because it's filled with tchotchkes? Because I like my tchotchkes? Is it papers that are a mess? Is it, right? There are so many different reasons that it could be. And so one of the things that you can ask it to do is help me figure out where the problem actually is, right? Ask me why until I can't come up with another one, right? Help me dig to the bottom of this problem that I have and why I'm trying to solve it and what the purpose is.
Yeah, and in fact, that's a free gift that we will offer to the listeners here. We have a prompt that will help you. We call it, what are you working on? And we'll drop the link in the show notes as to where people can go to get that prompt.
Yep. I'll add it at cashflowninja.com/AI prompt. So for folks, so we'll just direct it straight there. But I appreciate you sharing that. Yeah, it's almost like I was in the beginning of this year too, thinking like, how do we implement this? How do we roll out AI in our business? And I just went and say, hey, tune to the AI platform. I'm a business owner. This is my business. This is what we do. This is how we operate. How can you help me come up with ideas of how I can incorporate AI into my business? And what should I be doing? What is like the minimum thing that I should be doing in the first 3 months? And then what should I be doing in the second 3 months, and so forth, like every quarter. And it wrote out a pretty comprehensive plan. I was like blown away. So just by asking, like, can you, like, all right, help me figure this out of how to use you.
Yeah. And you can do the same thing with prompts too.
Yeah.
Right. So this is what I want to do. Give me a prompt that I can type in and it will help me do the next thing, right?
Yep.
Solve this problem.
Market research, pain points of asking
Yeah.
for your customers like that. Now it's, I mean, again, speak to your actual customers or clients and ask them. But also, this is a tool to cross-reference and kind of build on ideas and feedback that you're getting from actual real people, customer and clients. That, I mean, it's incredible, the data that it gives you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It is truly amazing.
Awesome. Let me, well, first, we talk a lot about business. We talk a lot about cash flow. We talk about investing on the show, but we always talk about a legacy, and living and leaving a legacy is kind of a philosophy. Show people, what you're all about when you're alive, so that they remember you when you're gone, is kind of the theme. So I always ask my first time guests, if you cannot leave any money for future generations, but can only leave 3 principles or values to them to help them build wealth and have them achieve success and happiness, I leave it pretty wide open, what would they be? So what would you guys share?
So I think for me anyway, I try to live out of a sense of gratitude for all the gifts that I have been given. I was blessed with a brain that works pretty well. My parents were very supportive in growing up. I had, we weren't wealthy, but I never was worried about whether or not I was going to have my next meal. And got a great education. And so I live out of a sense of gratitude and giving back. One of the things that I will mention here is that we offer our AI training, black belt, free to any full-time employee of a nonprofit. So if you contact us at Profit Minds, we can make that happen for a full-time employee of a nonprofit. And we're very supportive. I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and we're very active in our church. But giving back, that's probably the most important thing to me, giving back out of gratitude.
Awesome.
And then one that I would add is that we're all people. We all have to live here in the same place, in the same world. And one of the things that I really focus on within AI is ethical use and responsible use and bias mitigation and all of those kinds of things. Like, think about the potential repercussions of what you're doing, and think about how what you're doing may impact others, right? You never know when somebody's just having a really bad day. And so, yes, I was like, let's be honest. I live in Massachusetts. The drivers aren't very good. But you never know when somebody's just really having a bad day, right? It's one of those where it's part of that giving back. It's leading with kindness, right? You can tell I'm my dad's daughter, right? Like, it's that spirit of kindness. It's that giving back. It's leading with love, as some people like to say.
Great. Where can my listeners learn more about you guys? Where can they follow you? And where can they just stay in touch with all of the different projects that you're involved with, the services that you guys provide? Where can they connect?
Best place is either LinkedIn. I'm Steve Kirch, /Steve Kirch, or on our website, profitminds.net.
Perfect.
And I'm in /Suzanne Kirch, SUZANNE. Not Susan, very important. But yeah, I mean, we'll make sure that our LinkedIns are in the show notes and our emails as well. And we're always happy to to have a chat with people who are trying to figure out what in the heck to do with this new technology that everybody seems to be talking about. And we will work with you at whatever level you are at.
Perfect.
Legitimately, whatever level you are at. I've worked with some people who really, bless their hearts, they try so hard, but technology just is never their friend. We will sit and work with you. We will get you there.
Perfect. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Steve. This has been great. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your journey and your knowledge and just providing so much value to all of my listeners and viewers.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to all of my listeners and my viewers for again spending your most valuable resource, your time, once again with me on the show. Everything Cashflow Ninja is at cashflowninja.com. That's cashflowninja.com. We've recorded over 1,000 podcast episodes. We have 4 books, reports, webinars. It's all at cashflowninja.com. And don't forget to subscribe to the #1 newsletter in the alternative wealth strategy and alternative asset investing space, the Wealth Dojo. You can subscribe to the Wealth Dojo by going to cashflowninja.com/subscribe. Until next time, live infinitely. This presentation is for educational and informational purposes only. The information being presented and considered does not consider your particular financial objectives or situation, and it does not make personalized recommendations. This material is not intended to replace the advice of a qualified tax and legal advisor or other qualified professionals, and you should not use the information in place of a customized consultation with a licensed professional regarding your specific personal financial objectives, situation, and needs. We believe the information provided is reliable, but we do not guarantee its accuracy, timeliness, or completeness.